Matter of fact, if y'all don't mind, keep me lifted up in prayer. I'm going through some rough stuff, if I just be honest with you. My body is one of those times and seasons in life, I guess, where you go through some things. But just keep me lifted up in prayer. And thank y'all so much. I apologize. I really tried last night, and I just couldn't come on. I don't know. But anyways, Shabbat Shalom. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahavah's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message of mine. Shabbat Shalom, Mashabachi, and I Kovai, Chelet to servants of Christ, Mashabachi. Peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but be the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We're thankful and grateful to have you guys on. When I be telling you all this stuff like this, too shall pass, or we give our honor and praise to the Most High, we give our praise and honor to my wife, the Honorable Maya, to the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, lottie dot everybody. When I be saying, sometimes you got to push, and this person probably be like, yeah, Pastor, whatever, I'm going through that. I promise you, I'll go through with you and go through. And to be honest, if we actually are doing this correctly, we're supposed to go through stuff sometimes for each other. So we love each other. I honor you. And if I don't say it enough, if I don't get a chance to reach out to you enough, I wish I did. I wish I was more than one person. I promise you that we're in this together. So, yes, if you don't mind lifting up a prayer for me. Yeah, ministerial staff, I'll probably give you guys some more details soon enough, but just know, even though we're playing hurt, we're going to play. We're going to get out on the field, we're going to do what we're supposed to do, and we are going to be living sacrifices. I ask that you lift up Sister Andrea still, Minister Samantha Ray still. We're praying for safe traveling and mercies for Sister Shuna, and just pray for us as a community. When you get closer to the mountaintop, the air is thinner up there, so be prepared. But we love y'all, and I love y'all, and I apologize. So anyways, I tried to put a email out to you guys, letting you know that I was running behind. So I apologize. We got like a little bit more than an hour, if that now. So, and then we're looking forward to the word in the podcast from Elder Tammy. So we're excited about that. But we're gonna go ahead and get back into this dynamic series. Praise God. Amen. So we gonna do what y'all said do. I'm out already. But I'm thankful and grateful once again. Keep us in prayer as we keep you in prayer. Sisters, 7 p.m. New York time tonight. Supposed to be the women's meeting. Podcast at the top of the hour. Children later on today. Those in England, we're supposed to start next Saturday. You should get details on that. Brothers, who's supposed to preach for next Saturday. We'll have your assignments and everything. And sisters who are supposed to help earlier in that day will have your assignment as well. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started, say our Bible pledge, and jump right in. And if you're able to rise to your feet and reverence if you have His word, thank you for doing so, however you are able to reverence the word. Thank you for doing so in advance. How you doing, Brother Keith? Sorry, Liberate Fatale. I'm sorry, I can't see the face on here. Who is that again? I apologize. How you doing, Sister Danielle? I'm gonna try to reach out to you, by the way, about making some calls and stuff. Thank you for your help in advance. How you doing, Sister Renee? Sister Tamika, Brother Keith, Culture Prospect, Big Brother Charles, Double OG, Triple OG, Elder Tamara, Sister Greta, Sister Dawadah. And if I miss anybody, Sydney Holmes, Taz, Heaven, James 70, Boss of Light, Jackie Penn, and those whose names I cannot see for whatever reason, just know that we're appreciative of you for being on. And if you haven't had a chance to fill out the form, you can do so in the description, or you can use, it's not, I don't know if it's in the link tree yet, but it is all the different social media platforms. So we're going to try and put it out a few more times, or at least a couple more times before the end of the year. So please, sir, if you can update that for us so we can make sure that we go over updated information. This Monday coming up, we are going to continue our meetings. I know we already got word from one of you, maybe a couple of you, that you won't be able to attend. Oh, and also too, we're still praying for Minister Akita's family as well. We also have a family in need if you're able to help. You guys know how that works. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into this. You can just repeat after me real quick and let's get started. All right. where our Bible page goes as follows. Sorry, hold on 1 second. All these moving parts. Okay. Okay, this is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahavah is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Acham Yahavah. Aman. Which is Yahavah Shem. His name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Thank y'all for the love once again. Okay, so today, we've been doing a series for a while now. To reverse the curse, you must revisit the lie, right? Reversing the curse means revisiting the lie. Also, too, Brother Dwayne, and how you doing, Sister Carla, if I didn't say so already. Brother Dwayne has something interesting on his YouTube channel as well about that. I think it's also on his TikTok channel where, basically like talking about reversing the curse and doing simple things and literally just looking at what something means, law of first mention, all that, right? And how you doing, Sister Joy? Praise God for you. But today, reversing the curse means revisiting the lie. Today, we're going to talk about the lie specifically that's based, that we're going to use Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 to debunk. Okay? So we're going to talk about Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 to use that to debunk. I'm a fake Jew. Okay, is that the best you got? By the way, ad hominem doesn't get you anywhere. Can you prove to me that I'm a fake Jew? Even by my maternal background, which a lot of Jewish persons use, you have to actually admit by DNA and by blood that I am who I say I am. But once again, persons who have nothing better with their life, I can't actually debunk it. They just say random stuff. But this is why we are actually talking about today. So thank you for bringing that up to further prove the point. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 gets us to a place where we see this very clearly. It tells us that before you worry about the mote in someone else's eye, look at the beam in your own eye. In other words, if I can say it more in a more modern way, before you worry about me having some, little piece of something in my eye, right? Maybe you should worry about the fact that you got a 2x4 hanging out of yours, right? How you doing, Monica? Right? So before you worry about that, how you doing, Sister Greta? Yeah, it's over. But that's how we know it's time. You're right. Rejoice and be exceeding glad when they do all this foolishness. Right? The word is there to remind you, to encourage you, because it's coming. Right? But Matthew 7:3, how you doing, Sister Mignon? And I apologize. Some of the stuff I'm going through, I just haven't been able to call. I apologize. Thank you for trying to make yourself available for me. But recognize and realize that there's somebody who's ready to talk about the mote in your eye. And so I'm here to tell you as a Negro, some of you know what that actually is, right? I'm here to tell you, how you doing, Elder Nice, that when somebody's looking at the mote in your eye, you have to realize that's verses 3 through 5 that talks about that. Matthew 7, 3 through 5. Guess what it tells us in Matthew chapter 7, verse 6? Right behind that, it tells us that there are dogs that can't handle this, that we don't need to worry about casting pearls before swine. See, I'm not casting the pearl to the swine. I'm casting the pearls to you all. Those that have the ear to hear will hear. How you doing, Sister Tabitha? Right? Those who don't have the ear will not hear. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to hear. Not everybody's supposed to hear. Not everybody's going to last. Not everybody's going to do their due diligence. Not everybody's going to be in a position where they can receive the word. And that's okay. How you doing, Joyful Spirit? That's all right. And I'm not mad at anybody because there was a time that I wouldn't have been able to receive or hear. There was a time that I was knocking on doors and telling persons that what I say now is trash, and I was born and raised in it. So I was gung-ho for it. Matter of fact, when I realized I was gung-ho for something that others who raised me up were not necessarily as gung-ho about, like many of us, or if you grew up in the church, if that was your situation, many of us were against it and found out certain things and found out that we were lied to, and when we tried to ask questions, we couldn't get answers either, right? But those who have ears to hear, those that are ready, and those that have came out that have transformed from swine to sheep. Oh, that's a bar. That's a word right there. From swine to sheep. Right? But those have transferred, that have moved from swine to sheep. I used to be in the pig pen. I used to wallow in the mud. I used to spend hours a day on stuff that was, as the children would say today, caused brain rot. Now, brain rot is celebrated for some weird reason, but stuff that would rot your brain. Just like we used to eat candy and eat all this different stuff, right? But I used to be there. But praise Yah for him transforming me. So now that I'm no longer conformed to the world, but I've been transformed because he's renewed my mind. Daily renewal of the mind. Salah. Hallelujah. Daily renewal of the mind. I'm sorry, give me 1 second, y'all. So, in all these different things that we talk about, you have to realize that I want to show you some stuff. I meant to actually, this was going to be for last night. I couldn't pull myself together last night, if I just be honest. That being said, this was really supposed to be for us last night. And Holy Spirit said, we got to get this out, so we're going to be obedient. At least I thought this was supposed to be for last night. but watch this. The world, the white supremacists, the misogynists, the corporations, the wicked are not in any moral position to worry about the chaff in you and I's eye. They need to worry about the beam in theirs. Did you catch that? The world, those, including the worldly persons who come into the faith, stand in pulpits, say Shabbat Shalom, say God bless you, say whatever. They are in no moral position. How you doing, Brother Darius? They are in settled, no moral position to tell you and I about what's going on with us. For before they worry about the chaff in our eye, they should worry about the beam in theirs. Okay? Right? That's why we're using Matthew 7 verse 3, because you need to recognize these cats are worldly and are trying to get you and I off track by believing or thinking that somehow, some way, in their wickedness, they have a righteous moral ground to stand on to tell you and I why we should be better. Can the world make you better? Can the world make you kingdom? Can the world make you perfect, or does the law make you perfect? Can I say it again? Well, welcome. Is it Arik Star Wars? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. That being said, if I'll be honest with you, I'm not a Christian. I believe in the Bible, though. Right? It's the law that makes us perfect. Matter of fact, following it, Christ said in the Sermon on the Mount that it will help us to be perfect as our Father in heaven also is perfect. And before somebody says, I'm just making that up, because that's not exactly what it says, you got to know Matthew chapter 5, verses 11 and 12, or Matthew chapter 5, 10 through 12, Matthew chapter 5, 17 through 20, and then Matthew chapter 7, verse 20, and other places in there that are talking about law constantly and consistently, right? Anything that a king decrees is law. That's how kingdoms work. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Anything that what a king decrees, not anything that a man decrees, anything that a king decrees. You can be a man, matter of fact, you can be a king to the world standards, but if you're not a king in the kingdom, if you're not malachi or malakachi in the kingdom, if you're not royalty, if you're not male or female royalty in the kingdom, then what you say wouldn't be considered to be law anyways. We only are obedient to law, right? The laws of the kingdom. If it goes against the laws of the kingdom, we are willing not only to go against them, right? We are willing to, if necessary, be living sacrifices in whichever way the law sees fit, whichever way the word sees fit, whichever way our king sees fit, because our king is law. For whatever the word is the king, the word is Mashachi, the word is Yahavah, right? So these persons who keep trying to come against us, they are in no moral position to try and tell you and I. They are in no moral position to tell you and I why we or what's wrong with them. Now this is gonna sound crazy because you guys know I've said before. Look, if somebody gives me the word, even if they're in the world, I will obey the word. That's true. Right? But I'm talking about all these different things. You got to be careful about how we're waiting for all these persons to tell us this or tell us if it's okay for us to feel a certain way. Tell us it's okay for our women to feel like, they shouldn't be labeled as DEI hires, or tell us that if it's okay if we talk about racism, or tell us if it's okay. That's a lie. Remember, this whole series is called Reversing the Curse, means revisiting the lie. Do I teach that the Gentile can't be saved? Well, that's not what we're talking about right now. But does the Bible teach that? The answer is no. right? But being saved is not enough. Salvation, you have to work it out. And the Gentile, including even Timothy, and some persons at that, have to still start complying to the law. You show up as how you are, but you must change. Right? And if you don't believe that, that's Revelation chapter 20. If you can tell me what Revelation chapter 20, verses 12 through 15 says, and tell me that you're against it somehow, then, we'll just have to stop the conversation. But I'm focused on today, Matthew chapter 7, verse 3, which once again, those who are worried about the chaff in our eye, right? You see, we're talking about this specifically. And somebody will say, well, I'm going to tell you about this. Well, time out. What about the beam in yours? What do I mean? For example, we live in a world where persons will tell us about all these bad things and about how we need to have relationships together in our family. Right? I'm not waiting for anybody to pat you on the head and say it's okay. Right? Yeah. Right? We'll have all the persons, the so-called black family is this, and the so-called black family is that, and you Hebrew Israelites are this, blah, blah, blah. All right, you can't tell me about relationships, and you still uplift Elvis Presley. How you doing, Brother Roger? And I'm going to get back to you. I got your text. I just wasn't able to get back to you. I promise I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to say that one more again. I'm not trying to hear, how you doing, Brother Dennis? How you doing, Brother Hassan? I'm not trying to hear from the world about relationships if you still uplift Elvis Presley. Right? You can't say, if you don't know what I mean by that, Elvis Presley is somebody who married, when he got married, how old was she? 15, 16, whatever she was. And he was messing with a whole bunch of girls. I say girls, I can't say women. He was messing with a bunch of girls. How you doing, Sister Tasha? Right? And thank you. I did see the text. I just haven't been able to respond. Right? So you can't tell me about relationships and you still uplift Elvis Presley. By the way, I don't want to hear about truth in relationships. That Elvis Presley literally took, is his name Otis Blackwell? If it's not for persons like Otis Blackwell and others, you don't even have Elvis Presley. Like for those of you, I used to really like Aerosmith. I'll be honest with you, like they kind of okay, but I used to kind of like them when I was growing up. Not even I could stay awake just to hear you breathe and that stuff. I don't want to close my eyes. I'm talking about I actually went back in the catalog when it first started. Come to find out, like what was it, 70-80% of their catalog on their first couple of albums was nothing more than just stuff that was already stuff that we were putting out. But they'll take what we're doing, they'll appropriate it, they'll say, see, now that we've made off of this and that or whatever, and we told everybody you're nothing, now we're gonna sit there and say you need to be better in this and that or whatever, you need to get your money up, you need to be better in musicality, you need to stop stealing our music. Time out. Right? So Elvis Presley, same thing. By the way, you uplift Elvis Presley. What about Jerry Lee Lewis, who also had music that he made money off of from Otis Blackwell? Right? What about Otis Blackwell? Right? A lot of you don't even, if you look up Otis Blackwell, who he is, a lot of you will be surprised that Otis Blackwell is responsible for something like, Otis Blackwell is responsible for something like selling over 100 million albums that were sold were his songs that he gets zero credit for. But what about Jerry Lee Lewis, who also, right, Great Balls of Fire? I believe, no. Great Balls of Fire. Yeah, Great Balls of Fire. I believe that was Otis Blackwell who wrote that. Right? He was being paid before then. He ended up making okay money for the rest of his life. He made pretty decent money. But they didn't ever pay him nor really give him what he deserved. Right? And while Otis is being a grown man, they're giving those hits to persons who are, in fact, I have to be careful now because of Master Solomon's presence. How you doing? How I say it. But, well, he knows this word, I guess, whatever. I just can't, that were basically diddling. Right, that would drink out those people, and we go ahead and give them whatever. So we have issues. We have a lot of things where persons are busy telling you and I, and thanks for being part of the Community Star, and how's everybody doing? So we have persons who are willing to continue to tell us about the chaff in our eye, but won't deal with the beam in theirs. Right? That will tell us about the chaff in our eyes, but won't tell us about the beam in theirs. And so, yeah, we're going to be honest. We're going to be honest about the fact that You are trying to tell us about things but won't tell the truth, right? Matthew 7 verse 3. Don't worry about the chaff in my people's eye, and you have the beam in yours. This also means that we as a people need to stand up and be stronger when it comes to realizing that persons are not allowed to, or we shouldn't allow, right, persons to come in and tell us about the chaff when they have a beam. That's right, a half truth is always a whole lot, right? So we shouldn't allow persons to try and tell us about the chaff when they have a beam. I'm not saying you can't tell me about anything, but I hope you get the context today. You are not in any moral position being of the world. You are not in any moral position. If you are okay with, watch this, if you are okay with taking the lives of children in the womb, you are in no moral position to be telling us about how to raise our children. Because you don't even care if they live. Right? Just being honest. You're in no moral position. You're in no moral position to tell us how we should look. If you have literally told our women to feel bad about how they look, and then while you made them feel bad and start shaving and carving their bodies up, you started adding to your body to try and look like what they look like naturally. No moral position. Shabbat Shalom, I'm not sure it's Starla too. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Allah doesn't care who tells them, as long as they get told, hey, that's real, right? And including us not allowing person to tell us lies about ourselves. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Allison. How's everybody doing? So these persons are in zero moral position, right, to tell us what to do with our people, right? Zero. If you, right now, what did somebody ask about yesterday? The Abraham Accord or Abrahamic Accord, Abraham Accord. It's nonsense. The persons who are even in on it making the money off of it have said that it's done zero. And yet still apply those things and want you to applaud it. Or every time you hear somebody talking about Camp David, as if Camp David has ever helped the situation in Palestine. Or every time you hear, you have all these persons saying, speaking on all these different things and talking all this and won't talk about law. Here's something, how is it that we listen to a society that wants you and I to keep suspending disbelief? Is that the best you got, Ricardo? Is that the best you got? And yet, somebody with such as myself is the only way that you can even voice a foolish opinion. It's okay. See, yeah, I know. No, it's okay. You don't. See, I'm teaching. Unlike you, Rico, my son, he ready to roast. And he probably could roast very well, but I'm teaching him that we actually have decorum, and we actually are higher than you. And if that's the best that you have, to where a child can do better than you, that's why, once again, you're not my standard. We used to say that quite a bit. We need to bring that back somewhat, right? You are not my standard. Hello, Church Underground. Do you have a question that actually has to do with what we're talking about today? I'm not sure. Let's be honest with you. I don't have as much time, and I'm not here to argue today. We did Q&A for like about 6 or 7 hours the last 2 days combined. So if you missed that, you can go back and look at some stuff that probably answers your question. But regardless, what I'm talking about today is those who have a beam in their eye. We're not worried about you trying to tell us about the chaff. Because the chaff, we can do this and get rid of it. The beam, you got some work to do. The beam is surgical. The beam, by the way, if somebody gets a beam in their eye, it might be attached to the brain. That SBS, but we don't have to call it that beam, that BBS, that beam brain syndrome. Okay, no problem. Well, I appreciate you for being on. Sorry about that. Right? As you can see, we're having troll activity in different platforms. We're on several platforms as usual. Right? But those who are coming on, and that wasn't necessarily directed at you only. Right? But for those who are coming on, you are not our standard. You're not our standard. We're not doing things based upon those who live backwards. L-I-V-E, backwards is E-V-I-L. What's E-V-I-L spelled? Evil. How you doing, Big Roy? How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? We're not, yeah, we are the nation, and we have a specific thing. Watch this. What does the Bible say? What does the word say? Oh, that the world is waiting, that the creature, that creation is waiting for us to manifest as the children of the Most High, as the sons of Elohim. Right? That the creature, that the world, that creation is waiting for us to manifest. Right? Not for you.
Right.
Hey, how you doing? So it's waiting for us to manifest. It's waiting for us to manifest. Sorry, I'm cold. So it's waiting on us to manifest. It's not waiting on anybody else. So that's what I'm saying. Once again, those who have the beam in their eye that are trying to tell me about the chaff, the little bit of piece that I have, but you got a whole 2x4 in your eye. I'm not here, and we're not here. And this is one of the reasons why they get upset with us, by the way, nowadays. Because it used to be you could hit us with some foolishness, and it didn't matter that we only had a chaff. But now that we've actually realized we should separate from the wickedness of the system, now cats are upset because we stand on we stand 10 toes down on what we're trying to do, right? So reversing the curse means revisiting the lie. And the lie we're focusing on today is that a lot of you still live by the lie that the wicked have a right to tell the righteous what's up, right? That the cheater, right, has a right to tell the faithful what's up. That the one who's stealing money from us has a right to tell us what to do with the money we have. That the one who has miseducated the American Negro now has to tell us about how the American Negro is educating himself, right? You see what I'm saying? That they believe they still have the right. They've always believed. Once again, this is what not just racism, white supremacy is. This is what Manifest Destiny says. This is what the white man's burden says. This is what the lost cause says. This is what the doctrine of discovery says. You all right? You cold? Okay. We don't have as long as we want to do. If you need to be warm up, you know, some Kofi, some movement and stuff like that. Did you bring? Excuse me, y'all. You bring anything? You bring anything to be active with? You not really. What's up? Oh. Okay. Well, if you need to move around or be accurate, or if you want to watch the stuff and just listen, you're more than welcome. Right, but we're not going to. That's it. Yeah, we don't have time for the willingly ignorant today. That's right. Or any day. For real. Any day. And that's the thing we got to realize, right? Like any of these days, you know, we would get way more work done realizing that we don't have to work for the ignorant. I ain't doing more design. Until the righteous don't follow the New Testament. That's JC. Well, that's, once again, that's your belief system. And that's what you go by, and that's okay if that's what you believe. If that's what you believe. Right? Now, it's interesting that as much as you're talking about JC, which, by the way, JC, we know what time that is. We don't worship JC and any of that. But if you want to talk about so-called Jesus Christ or whatever, the interesting thing is, why do we not talk about how much that he says about following the law? And why is it that we allow Paul to be manipulated to where now he's not talking about law? And clearly, if you look at just the Christology, what they call the Christology, Romans chapter 8, Romans, the entire epistle or the entire letter, what you call the book, the entire thing actually talks about law. The law is holy. I'm quoting it. The law is holy. The law is spiritual. The law is true. He would not know what lust was if he didn't have a law that said do not covet. Like, these are things that are in there. And these are things that are so-called Old Testament. By the way, Old and New Testament was never a thing. I'll give you this. Watch this. You know that Old and New Testament was never a thing? Somebody wrote that recently in the story of mankind. I know that recently meaning hundreds of years, but in the last few hundred years, somebody started telling you and I there was such thing as Old and New Testament. Never was a such thing. Matter of fact, the books that we call lost books, and they call Apocrypha, they were never called the Apocrypha. And if you look at the Apocrypha, the so-called New Testament, Old Testament, they line up. The problem is context and culture. The problem is context and culture. And by the way, if Yahavah, or if who you're talking about, JC, never existed or whatever, then to be honest with you, I don't even understand what we're having an argument or discussion about, because there's no Messiah. And if there's no Messiah, then, this is kind of a pointless thing, so I'm going to move on. No offense, no shade, but just saying, once again, those who have beams in their eye, I'm not paying attention to it, right? I have something that helps me to remove the chaff. And I can see clearly, or I can see more clear than the person with the beam, even if I got a little bit of chaff. Now, it doesn't mean we shouldn't do better. If you got chaff in your eye, the chaff of sin, the chaff of cussing folk out for no reason, the chaff of lack of control, lack of discipline, all this stuff, we like to just talk about like adultery and stuff. No. Some of us have the sin of non-discipline. Some of us have the sin of we say we're going to do something, and then even if it even if it takes time, but we don't even take any time to at least start rolling and moving slowly forward. You know what I'm saying? Um, Things like that. That's sin as well, missing the mark. Right? That's right, Old New Testament Nicolaitans doctrine. By the way, any doctrine, can I say this too? Because this is scripture. You all right? You get a little, if you need to, you do push-ups on the side or do some jumping jacks if you need to. If you need to, if you're okay. I didn't even realize this is small.
No, it's a new.
Oh, she got the same thing. Okay, cool. You all right though? You sure? All right. If you call, let me know. Okay. All right. Okay. So you can voice if you need if you need something, you can just say what you need. Okay. All right. But you're doing well. You're doing well. You can stand over here if you like. Okay. You're doing well. I'm just making sure you're okay. All right. All right. So but yeah, so I'm sorry, where are we at? So we're not gonna worry about the person with beams, the person with beams in their eye. You hear what I'm saying? The person with beams in their eye don't get to talk to us. Well, hopefully you get the context. Hopefully you get the context, right? I want to move on because I'm getting kind of repetitive in that, but hopefully you get the context of that. If you're walking around with the beam, that's where it was. To that of a well, modern Hebrew, we're not on modern Hebrew. I kind of sort of know modern Hebrew, to be honest. Others are better in modern Hebrew, but if it's modern, that means it was changed. According to the law, we were never supposed to change it, right? So just being honest with you, that's not going to be a great thing on here, not trying to come against you, just being honest, right? Even in that, you see what I'm saying? Like there are persons that are living with beings, right? Let's even deal with that real quick. I hope this doesn't come off as offensive because I don't know what your intent is or is not, right? You're just coming on, right? Watch this. If somebody changes something, is it original or is it changed? I know that sounds like it's a wild thing. I'm gonna ask my son, a child, because it seems like adults don't get this. Watch this, son. If you write me a note, if I change the note and give it back to you, is it the note that you wrote or did I change it?
You changed it.
Okay, right? Y'all hear that, right? That's kingdom. You would think that'd be common sense, but maybe we're talking kingdom sense, not common sense. You would think if somebody gave me something and we call it modern, it means that it's modern, but it means it's what? Change. Not original. Yeah, it's changed. It's not the original. So if somebody if you believe in the Bible, for those who believe, others have different beliefs. I'm not even knocking you as much on that right now as you might think I am. But if your belief is Tanakh, Torah, Scroll, Guide, Bible, original, if I change, that's right, modify, right? If I change something, it is modern, then it's not the original. Watch it. What's the difference? If you go to a corporation and there's the CEO and then there's what? There's a president, right? Or let's say there's the president of the company, but then there's a president in charge of this, the president in charge of treasury, the president in charge of, I don't know, I'm gonna mix stuff up real quick, the president in charge of clothing, the president in charge of paperwork, the president in charge of whatever. But none of them are the actual presidents, right? We had to modify the title so that you would know that it's not the actual original. But if you come to me with something called modern Hebrew, is it in fact Hebrew? Or is it a change? Or maybe we would even give you as a dialect. But there are many who are blinded by the change. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? You said no one more lost than black Muslim. How lost and indoctrinated can one be to embrace the religion of their own oppressors? Well, you saying that about the Muslim, you say that about the so-called Christian, which once again I'm not. And by the way, when you talk about the Muslim,
which Muslim?
Right? Yeah, which Muslim? All Muslims, according to you, right? Are we talking about Mansa Musa?
Nation Islam?
Because Mansa Musa's Muslim, and if you look at, I'm about to say Ibn Battuta, if you know who that is. If you look up Ibn Battuta, who gives us the history of a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't even know about, Ibn Battuta is who tells us about the fact that he is a Muslim, he was sent from Morocco towards the end of his journey. And when he sent that, we just talked about this recently, right? In Reversing the Curse, he was in the live. We actually have a whole thing in our playlist about this, where if Ibn Battuta is sent down to the Muslim, right, or to a Muslim nation, but he's confounded and he's mad because some women around are walking out with their bare chests. Some women are able to talk back. Some men and women can talk to each other. Some men are willing to, say the prayers, but they also eat things that are considered by Muslim law to be wrong. And Mansa Musa has to tell them, over here we tolerate. So which one? Now, to be honest, they probably did have some slavery. We don't know to the extent, but they probably did, or at least even the Tuta really wouldn't have cared, even if they did have that stuff. No. I just as soon as I was like, why you going up? As soon as I looked up, I said, excuse me, y'all. Apparently I'm sitting here with a big old booger in my face. I apologize.
Oh, my
How you doing, Freedom? But also persons will say, well, the Bible is whitewashed, this and that or whatever. But before it was called the Bible, and before there was a such thing as Christianity, before there was a such thing as Roman Catholicism, before iron mixed with clay, the so-called Bible existed, and it wasn't written by white folk. And if you read it correctly, it reads revolutionary. And is it not interesting? See, this is why I said we got beams in our eyes, and we're talking about chat. See, watch this. Why is it that we don't talk about Toussaint Louverture, and that he fought for freedom when he read the Bible and said, "Oh, I need to roll like Moses did," right? Or why is it that we don't talk about Olaudah Equiana, who became a slave, who was a slave, made a slave, brought over, ends up purchasing his own freedom, reads the Bible and says, "Oh, wait a minute, my people." He remembers from his childhood, "My people did all these things. You know what? My people were Hebrews; they were Israelites." He says as a slave. What about Flavius Josephus, who was an Israelite general, becomes a slave in Vespasian's house when Vespasian becomes the emperor? He ends up writing all this history and tells you not only who he is, but tells you what we look like, and even tells you not only that the Messiah existed, but tells you what he looked like. Guess who he looked like? I'll give you one guess. All right? So we keep saying this stuff, but because we have beams. You know what the beam is? The beam is the world. The beam is the Eurocentric system. One of the beams some of you guys have. And many persons have different beams, so we be honest. But those who have just one beam, or the beam we're talking about today, right? Yeah, that's right. He looks swarthy. Swarthy means what? Dark. By the way, go look up what a European deacon said in the 1400s that the Moors look like. He describes them the same way Christ is described in Revelation chapter 1. He says they have hair like wool. He says they have eyes like fire, because if you take it off really, really dark skin and you put the eyes from far away, it looks like fire. He says that they have really dark skin as if it was copper burnt in the furnace. If it was this, burnt in the furnace. That's what he said. So it's extremely blackety black. Like blackety black, right? He says all these things. This is in history. This ain't even just in Bible. This is in history. These persons are described like that. Yet somebody comes on and says, "No, man, I'm going to go ahead and come against it. It's the white man, blah, blah." As if, once again, here's another beam. You don't even know that the color white doesn't exist, because white means clear. White means translucent, right? There is no such thing as color white. If you are white, the whiter something gets, the less color it has, which means that you cannot exist as a so-called white person. You cannot exist as a so-called white person. You know why? Because you'd have to have lack of melanin, right? You can't be alive with no melanin. I don't care how white something appears to be. So there technically isn't even a color white. White is the absence of color. Polar bear fur under a microscope is white. It is clear, right? White snow under a microscope, it is clear. It is crystal. White blood cell under a microscope, it is clear. But we're looking at things with a beam. This is why, yes, we do have chaff. We do have things we have to improve. But we can't consider their system to be the thing to tell us what to do. This is why right before Matthew 7, verse 3, and Matthew 7, 1 and 2, it says, judge the way you want to be judged, by our standard, right? By your standard, really. Judge in the manner you want to be judged. Condemn in the manner you want to be condemned, right? Forgive in the manner you want to be forgive, and it shall be given unto thee. Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. But before that, even it says that our focus should be what? I'm not sure. Our focus should be what? The kingdom of Elohim. Seek ye first the kingdom and all his right lawful standing, and all these things that you have questions and things you're looking for and things you're trying to get shall be added unto thee. And give no thought for the morrow, how somebody will even think tomorrow, whether you'll be able to have food or clothing or anything for tomorrow. For the morrow has already been taken care of, sufficient to the evil thereof. Even when they add the evil in there, the stuff is already there for us. Here's the problem, though. and all those different things. Here's the problem. I'm sorry, what'd you say? It actually says his hair was white like wool, talking about the color. No, it talks about texture, and that's a lie, once again, that we sit on. We like to sit on that. First of all, if we look at it in the Greek, we see clearly the way it's written, it's actually talking about texture and color. But also, too, if it's white like wool, here's the problem with that. You know, not all sheep have fur, have wool when it's attached to their body. The wool is not necessarily always considered to be white, and not all sheep have white wool, which means that even just us trying to make that assumption is somebody assuming something or trying your best to say, I don't see color. Right? Problem with this also is that we also have things that we can look at. Right? We also have other things we can look at. Because if we go deeper, right, if we just want to be honest about it, how you doing, Melissa? Shabbat Shalom. Right, if we want to be honest, how you doing, Sister Sheila? If I miss you, be safe out there on your travels if you're traveling, right? And if the children are with you, if they can hear it, they can see, hey, what's up, how y'all doing, right? Now, if we want to go deeper, hallelujah, I'm on it, thank God for the love. If we want to go deeper and not just stay on the surface, right? If we want to go deeper with this, well, let's look at Christ. See, the beam is stopping you because you're so worried about looking like you care about color, and you don't want to care about color when the Most High created color. But let's go deeper with this. Christ himself is hidden in Kemet. Do you think he was hidden in Kemet because he didn't, or because he stood out, or he was hidden somewhere where he stood out? You hear what I'm saying?
He was hidden when
Where he wouldn't stand out, where he could be hidden. Right. Shabbat Shalom, how you doing, that boy? Yeah. He was hidden where he would what? He was hidden where he would not stand out. The same place that Moses was. The same place that Joseph married into. And when Joseph, even though Joseph is not gone over years and years of looking different, Joseph, when he's sitting there and he sees his brothers in Kemet, they can't tell the difference between him and them. Only difference is the way they're dressed and the language they speak.
and white people are trying to combat, but white people talk about boogeyman being made from water or nothing into frogs and all this stuff and monkeys.
Well,
and they call us monkeys.
Well, yeah, and it's not all white people, but I see what you're saying. He's saying that there are white persons or Eurocentric persons who do some of those things and talk about some of those things or whatever. And yeah, we have been taught that we're monkeys or stuff like that and things of that nature, but none of us, including them, none of them are monkeys, right? But that comes from a rhetoric that we've been taught, right? And rhetoric that somebody showed us at one point in eugenics and all this different stuff or whatever. How you doing, Buddha Richard? You said go ahead and read the scripture out loud so we can all hear it. Read what scripture out loud? I've already talked about the scripture. We in the scripture. We in there. We talking about Revelation chapter 1. Open your Bible. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. We're talking about Revelation chapter 2, which says that we have to make sure that there are those who say they are us and are not, but really are the synagogue of the Satan, and that we should know who we are. Oh yeah, you can go ahead. That's Revelation 2:9. You can read for yourself. Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 through 9, where it talks about those that, it talks about the one who has the key of David, the one who's holy, the one who's true. And he said that there are the same thing, that he opened doors for us that no man can shut, and shuts doors that no man can open. And said there are those who say that they are us and not, but are the synagogue of the Satan, and he will have them to learn how to worship the Most High properly by learning from us. Right? You can read that for yourself. It says that we need to make sure that we're against Balaam doctrine, which is any doctrine, if you know about Balaam the prophet in Numbers 22, 23, and 24. It tells us to be against any stuff that's that kind of prophet or mindset, or persons who are supposed to preach the word, what you appear to be trying to do, will try to tell us that Israel no longer matters. Matter of fact, should we go to Paul when somebody was mentioning Paul earlier? Okay, I can't keep it with all of it. I see it, but thank you. You keep looking at it and learning how to do it. So watch this. Paul says in Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, is there any, for the person who was saying that Paul is against his own people, Paul says in Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, he says specifically, is there any advantage? He asked a question, two questions. Is there an advantage to being a Jew or Israel? And is there an advantage to being circumcised, following the law? He says, much so, yes, in every way. By the way, the same Paul who says that circumcision of the heart counts more, which it does, he also makes sure that Timothy gets circumcised. I mean, we can keep on going and going, but once again, the beam is blocking from you being able to see past. And then somebody tries to point out the chaff. I don't like the way you did that or whatever. You got to remove the beam. You got to remove the beam. Right? And how you doing, Frank Bar? You got to remove the beam. And I think I said Shalom, Big Boy. If I didn't, Shabbat Shalom to all, by the way. Shabbat Shalom, right? To all, hopefully all as well. Right? So you got to remove the beam. We can keep on going, but see, persons who have the beam are trying to tell me about the chat. And if I know that you got a beam, I got to be careful, because when you start moving and everything and telling me about this, you might be hitting me upside the head. Right? I'm tired of ducking and doing this. Hey, get the beam out first. I'll remove the chaff. Right? Let my people, right, who are called by Yah's name, use the word of Yah to deal with the chaff. Right? If you want to remove the beam, then we can start talking about that. Yah will heal you when you remove the beam, but you got to remove it first. You know what I'm saying? You have to remove it. Literally, person saying all this. Paul says in Romans chapter 7, the law is holy, the law is perfect, the law is pure, the law is without sin. The commandments are holy. He says if it wasn't for the commandments, he wouldn't know what sin was. He says that there's one law, but two ways of looking at it. Some persons put their flesh on it. Therefore, there's the law of sin when you put your flesh on the law, and there's the law of the spirit, the way it was supposed to be, and the way it should manifest from the spirit into the physical. And those of us that live by it, therefore we are not condemned, for we follow after the spirit, not after the flesh. And when you read Romans chapter 8, verse 2, right behind what I just said, you'll discover he still is talking about the law of the spirit versus the law of sin. But we're so busy talking about Paul, because in order to make your point that what the Messiah has done null and void, you'd have to say that the so-called New Testament was never righteous. But then if Christ never died for us, then you should be about the law. So then is my question to you. How many times have you made sure you sacrifice bullocks and rams and doves? Or who is your Messiah? And if he's come, you know, what has he come? Has he obeyed stuff like Psalm 22? Has he become the second Adam? Right? So some of you have these persons. By the way, I talk to a lot of false messiahs from time to time. They try to call me on the low and act like I'm supposed to support what they're doing. You got to be in the word. You got to know this thing. Right? You got to know. By the way, you know, even persons who come, see, watch this, the beam. We get into these weird arguments, the beam. Persons will say, you're not wearing your fringes, right? But according to the law, none of y'all wear your fringes, at least not correctly. Because according to the law, if you want to actually wear the fringes properly, you're supposed to take the actual chemise, the actual fabric, tunic, whatever you're wearing, you're supposed to take it, and in the corners, tear it. And when you tear it in the corners, right, you allow those things to drag down, and then you take a cord and you put it around that. That's why a lot of persons take the paper clips. You know, I do the paper clips. Solomon did the paper clips from time to time. We'll take them and put them in the corners. But that's actually not, you're supposed to tear the fabric itself. Sometimes it tears naturally, but you're supposed to tear the fabric itself if you're going to do it properly and make sure it's in the four corners of what you wear. Is that what you wear? No, because we still don't know what it says. So yes, Yahavah is the ultimate sacrifice. But what I'm saying is that if you say that the New Testament it's always weird, because first of all, there's no such thing as Old and New Testament. Somebody recently made that up. But if you're doing that, if the New Testament doesn't exist, then why do you even count anything from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or even John? By the way, if you're into that, if you're on the Eurocentric thing, you don't know, there's something called the Synoptic Gospels. John doesn't count, because John is not considered to be the Synoptic Gospels. The Gospels, so to speak, Godspell's Gospels, John is not part of that. There's only three. You got to research. You got to be proper. You've gone from what persons teach in church and things like that, and they're still trying to argue through a Eurocentric prism. That's not even how you're supposed to look at it. And then when you look at that, right, and you say, okay, well, I'm against that or whatever, then how is it that, see, because watch this, Yahavah is also mentioned in Acts chapter 1. The only reason Acts chapter 2 happens is because we're obedient to what he says in Acts chapter 1 when he tells us to make sure we're in position to what we call today Pentecost. If we weren't obedient to that, then we couldn't even been where we were supposed to be. That's right. It's illogical, it's illogical honesty, but it's also intellectual dishonesty. And thank y'all for the love. How you doing? We're going, Audrey. You see what I'm saying? We don't want to be honest about this stuff. Hey, how you doing, Big Brother Yusuf? Right? We don't want to be honest about this. Right? Or we just haven't been taught correctly. But we're in a position where we're doing this really weird thing. We're doing this really weird thing where we're trying to, like, persons who clearly have beings, who have vision problems. And by the way, if you have vision with the word, I promise you have vision with your life. You have vision problems with your life. If you can't see where we're headed in the word, you can't see where we're headed in life. It wants us, all of us are supposed to be coming back together, scattered. Right? That's what we believe. We're all supposed to be coming back together, scattered. That's what we believe. That Yahavah, Israel, is supposed to be coming back, scattered from the four corners. All right. Question. Why is it that we do more to stay separate than we do to come together? Do you believe that? See, I gotta bring back to your word. Whether you're talking about Deuteronomy 28 or whether you're talking about or whether you're talking about Revelation chapter 7. Okay? How is it that the word says, see the beam that's holding you back, right? How is it that you coming in here with a beam in your eye, knocking everything over, telling everybody why it is that you must remain separate, but you haven't done anything like making sure, hey, what can we agree upon? Can we agree upon at least making sure that we're supporting each other's businesses? Can we agree upon building these homes? Can we agree upon making sure that our people don't have to wait until everybody else who's in the world, by the way, because I'm here to tell you, just because you're black, right, not all skin folk is kinfolk. And a lot of so-called black persons still out here voting, still out here being a Democrat or Republican, still out here worried about that more than they're worried about the word, and then only make moves for the betterment of our people to make sure that Congress supposedly gets their act together. And then once Congress makes one small move, then we start celebrating and go right back to being duped and being fools and being enslaved. Why is it that we had to have somebody tell us, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not going to support Thanksgiving and Christmas because they got rid of the SNAPS program, when the word says we should never support Thanksgiving or Christmas. If we never supported it in the first place, but still did the things that we were going to do to support each other now, well, if we have been doing that for years, then it's over. I've said this before. We said this recently, right? What if 1,000 persons, not even 100,000, 100,000 is game over. It's game over. And there's way more supposed black folk that we could do this. But what if 1,000 persons said every day, I will give $1. Forget even tithes and offering, right? Which persons try to get out of as well because you don't want to actually build anything. You just want to talk about stuff, and you're hoping that without works, you just have faith that something will happen, but you don't have to do anything to get there. But what if 1,000 persons once a day gave $1? Every month, you got $30,000. $30,000 by the time you get to the end of the year, that's $365,000. Do that 10 years in a row and see what happens. It's that simple. See, watch this. See, we have such a beam in our eye. You talking about all this other stuff. I'm literally saying, what if this is how simple it is? If 1,000 persons said, I will give $1 a day to anything we try to do, by the end of the year, that's $365,000. If 10,000 persons a day, so-called black persons, whatever, did it, that means that you multiply what I just said times 10. Imagine doing something like that for 10 years straight. You tell me what we couldn't do. If we had 1 year of 365,000, I'm just trying to show you how easy this is. 1 year, 365,000, tell me where we couldn't live. Y'all tired of being in America? 1 year, 365,000. Go somewhere where, like, even in Ghana, which is not necessarily underdeveloped, but the CD is, 4.5 times less than what the dollar is, that means if you raise 365,000, you got to multiply it times 4.5. That means that you can go over there for the rest of your lives, be straight. Because it don't cost 365,000 CD to get a plot of land. I'm just trying to tell, but we are so busy separating because of the beam. The beam is still there. The Willie Lynch syndrome beam is still in your eye. If you don't know about Willie Lynch, and even if you think that it's a myth, guess what? What's in it is real. And you still arguing over color or whose religion or what plantation, because you talking about religion, this and that. No. Religion is what you do every day. Let's do the same thing every day and share religion rather than going ahead and see. I'm not saying we shouldn't get the word straight, but the word says we should share the same religion. How you doing, Brother Alex? How you doing, McCray? Thanks for being part of the community. I'm not saying we shouldn't get the word to the letter. I'm saying can we at least have the same religion? You're so busy talking about this. The Bible in Old Testament or New Testament says we should be eating together. We should be eating real food. We should be supporting each other. We should make sure our business is taken care of. And we'll say, I'm all in until somebody says, okay, show some effort. And look, if you don't want to do it with $1, fine. Do you have a farm? If you have a farm, hey, be all in. Make sure people eating. You can't do it with a farm? Okay, cool. Do you have something to where children can learn? Okay, make sure children are learning. Do you have the ability to make sure persons can come on Zoom and maybe talk in your area and have conversations every day or try to better themselves and do that in your area? See, all I'm doing is I'm just supposed to be nothing more than the vessel. I'm not a so-called God, piece of the gods, even though I like Yusufel and all that, but I'm not piece of, no. I'm not a God, I'm not somebody to worship. I'm coming here telling you the one that we said we worship has already laid this out, and it ain't, some of the stuff, I ain't gonna act like it won't be any difficulty, but some of the stuff ain't that difficult. Well, you know what they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Yeah, but in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they were still doing business with the world. You can do business with yourself and say kick rocks to the world. We should learn from that. I'm not saying we should do it's a choice. They got battered, bruised. We should respect what they did. They laid a blueprint too. And by the way, they kept coming back. So that's something else we're gonna talk about too. They fought their way back. They kept coming back. They didn't just accept, oh, they came at us. They still, and there's a lot of Tulsa, Oklahoma that's a lot better than you and I know. It's like when they show you all the stuff online, or not online, nowadays online. Back in the day when we was growing up, and you see the television programs, and you see on there, be like, feed the children, and always some really terrible looking, one of us that got his stomach bloated and not making fun. I'm just saying, that's what they would show you. And the reality is, you go to that same country, there's a bunch of places that are way better than that. It shows that we don't support us. It's part of the problem. And a lot of persons are coming in with that beam in their eye. See, a lot of y'all think when we talk about racism, white supremacy, you think you got to be a white person to make sure that you bring about racism, white supremacy. Some of the worst persons in racism, white supremacy are persons that are black. Some of the worst persons that are biblical are persons that are Christian or followers of the way. Some of the worst persons with the Quran are persons who have their prayer rug and pray 5 times a day facing the east. Every day. Some of the worst. Some of the worst persons talking about NOI. That's why I asked earlier about which version of Muslim, because NOI doesn't even do Ramadan. Yes, they do. No, they don't. Not according to the Quran. And they believe that God or Allah, they believe Allah is a man. I'm not even making it up. They believe, see, you got to learn stuff for yourself. You have a being, you just thinking blackity black. You haven't researched or studied. They actually believe, look at Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad got taught by W.F. Muhammad, who was a fraud. If you look him up, he's got like 30, 40 aliases at least that we know of. All right? He was a fraud. He himself, not trying to say he's bad because of this, but just follow the logic. He himself was so-called mixed race. He was half white, half black. Right? His father was black, a black New Zealander. His mother, I think, was a European person who came over to New Zealand, whatever. He ends up in the States. He is teaching and falsifying teachings he's learning from other persons who are teaching at the same time. He never really picks up like Noble Drew Ali and other persons, but he's falsifying some of those teachings and teaching some stuff that's not so much, right? But give him credit, he's supposedly supposed to be anti-racism, blah, blah. I don't know that part because I didn't sit in on the teachings. Okay. That being said, he's teaching Elijah Poole, who's not Elijah Muhammad as of yet. Elijah Muhammad listened to the teachings, and he said, Elijah Muhammad said this out of his own mouth. You can listen to this stuff on YouTube. He says out of his own mouth, he was listening to the teachings, he heard the stuff, and he heard this thing keep saying son of man. He remembered in church, which he said he never paid any attention, but he said that he remembered in church they kept talking about son of man. He realized the son of man was like Christ, And he believed in his heart that W.F. Muhammad was Son of Man, as in Christ. He tells W.F. Muhammad that which W.F. Muhammad, according to Elijah Muhammad, is totally like freaked out by that at first when he hears this. But later on, uses this and tells Elijah Muhammad in secret, yes, what you say is true. I am Son of Man. And so what they teach, even included in every Founders Day that you'll listen to today. Yes, I know about Founders Day. I be listening. I study. I don't just say stuff randomly. If I don't know, I don't know. They still to this day. Elijah Muhammad taught it, and now Farrakhan teaches it. And he said, and they teach this, that Elijah Muhammad taught that you can tell W.F. Muhammad was a great person for we as the black people, because his father, who is really God, that's where they get God as man, we are the gods. This is where this is coming from through the NOI. And he says, and he said, I can believe. Oh, okay. It's well, they still will be doing stuff, but I'm be finished at 10. So I should be finished by 10, before 10, really. Okay, yeah. So, but yeah. So Elijah Muhammad learns that. Elijah Muhammad preaches that the reason you can tell that W.F. Muhammad's father, who's supposed to be the God who started NOI, he says that you can tell that he was great for our people because he married a white, this is what they teach, he married a white woman, had her in such subjection and in submission, he was able to bring the white devil. This is what they teach. The white devil was in submission, and that shows that W.F. Muhammad is a product of that and was able to teach Elijah Muhammad, who now starts what you call the NOI, even though he within himself didn't really spread it. It was him with the help of Malcolm X. Right? So, who they later would off, Farrakhan being part of it, allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly. Right? So, in all these different things, you hear, right? But somebody will say, oh, we got so much beam in our eye that we can't even come together. So they do Ramadan in a whole different time of the year, and they don't even do it to be closer to the Allah that somebody who else who is Muslim, regardless of your sect, thinks you're doing Ramadan for a whole different reason, to a whole different spirit. But in Nation of Islam, a lot of them don't even know this. Matter of fact, if you recall, recently there was a big deal. Was it 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021, somewhere in there, where Farrakhan, everybody was so happy because he said, I know, my Redeemer lives. But if you watch the whole sermon, he's saying that he is Christ's return. Which means he's basically saying that he's W.F. Muhammad reincarnated. How you doing, Money? Thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of the community. Right? So even when you do this stuff, you have to realize, like, this stuff is designed to have you and I just being a puppy dog chasing his tail. After some point, we got to say, enough chasing the tail. Like, what's the truth? Right? I'm all for the so-called black man, having revolution. Right? But before it's even the black man, it's the Negro. It's the Israelite. That's what the Bible's about. And if you realize who you really were, you would have realized we've already been given the game to come out of the curses. Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 through 68, basically read the same as Willie Lynch letter, as the Willie Lynch letter. Oh, wow. Okay, we've been having issues with this for a minute. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. I'm sorry, we have the issues with charging. I'm trying to make sure we don't lose them. Right? So if we, once again, if we recognize that we were supposed to separate, we would stop worrying about integration. Do you know what integration even means? See, you coming with the beam of integration. Are you aware what integration even means? How you doing, Hidden? If you knew what integration was, what is integration? Integration means to be integral, integrity. Integrated means to be one. If we're not one, we're not integrated. That means we should only have one Elohim. Shema Yachad Shema. That means here, right? Shema Yachad Yahavah Elohim, Yahavah Allah. He is one. Achava Yahavah. That's Allah, love, with one passion, with one heart, with all your heart. That word that they're saying all your is just saying one heart, one mind, one soul, one strength. And if you learn how to do that, then you learn how to love your neighbor. Now, who's supposed to be your neighbor? That question was asked. And how you doing, Seattle King? How you doing, Antoine? Thanks for being part of the community. That's the original Avda. That's the original, what we call today, Hebrew. Or if you want to say it's a dialect, I'm not going to argue today. Right? Believe it or not, I teach this stuff. We teach university level classes and stuff on not just this, but other things. You say Israelite with an Egyptian. First of all, it's not Egyptian. You got to think Kemetic, right? And if you think Kemetic, you got to think before that it was Cushitic. Now, if you've ever done any travel, or even if, watch this, you ever go into a parking lot in the United States of America, if you go to a parking lot in some of the big cities and you'll see a so-called Ethiopian person, right, a Cushitic person, take an Ankh and put it before them. They'll tell you what it is. They won't say that's an Ankh. They'll tell you exactly what it is. First of all, they'll say that's ours. So you have to know their culture to even know what they're referring to. And it's always interesting that persons want to go into Cushitic versions of the Bible, but don't want to actually know what Cushitic persons say about the truth about what this is. This is a Tav, but it's like a cursive version of it. That's it. Before somebody appropriated it and told you that it was something for worship, which even a lot of Kemetic dynasties didn't use the Ankh for worship, or just use it as part of what you guys today still call hieroglyphs, right? Not everybody believed that the Ankh was something for worship. Right? But once again, it's a being. And who told you, by the way, that this was for worship only? Just like they tell you that you're not supposed to wear precious stones, even though you're supposed to, some of you want to have on your ephod, the so-called ephod's really an avad, but what people call the ephod, and you like to have the ephod, which is supposed to have, which is supposed to mimic gold, right, and precious stones, gold being a precious stone. Right? But for some reason, right, in the Bible describes the earth looking like a precious stone, lapis lazuli. But for some reason, you guys have been told that you believe that if you wear a precious stone, not realizing that witchcraft means you're using the stuff to control others and you're manipulating what Yah had for its origin, right? Or you don't even talk about the precious stones that are talked about that were inside of the ephod that that the priest would use to hear the word of Yah and what he wanted them to do. Right? But once again, we've been taught so much foolishness, right, that you're coming in with a beam. So yes, I have no problem using stuff for what it is and taking it as what it is. Once again, this is culture. That's one of the biggest things as far as the beam in your eye that's causing you to try and look at the chat. Somebody looked at all this stuff and somebody said, oh, I found one. It is Israelite with a knock. Yeah, that's not problematic for us. You have the beam in your eye. That's what we focus on today. The series is called Reversing the Curse Means Revisiting the Lie. The lie we're talking about today, basically, we're using Matthew 7, verse 3 against. Because the lie that many of you are doing is taking stuff and not even recognizing culture. For example, one that we always use. Here we go. This is a marital scripture, but you only hear it during funerals, which means that the thing that's supposed to show us how to be one is only brought up when it's time for us to talk about somebody dying. But John chapter 14 says, Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, if you believe in Abba, the source, also believe in me. In my Father's house, right, in the source's house, there are many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. I go to prepare a place for thee, that where I am, you will be with me also. Now, this is not a graveyard scripture, although yes, we know that Christ is saying, when I leave, don't sweat it, even though he would therefore be seen again, come back. Therefore, we can't just only think about this as being in the grave, right? But he's talking about marriage, because in our culture, right, the husband, when you have to be trained to be a husband before you're married. You have to be pre-qualified as a husband and pre-qualified as a wife. That's why a husband who finds a wife findeth a tabah, or righteous thing, and obtaineth favor from Adam. Okay? So when you're qualified as a husband, then you go and do, right? Or then you go and you're given, you have to also be taught what it is to be a father, right? This is after you've been taught what a man is. That's where you get that whole bar mitzvah or bar matazavah thing from, which basically is just talking about being of a lawful legal age as a son, right? And being verified through the community. Then you go to your land. While you're on your land, you're continuing your father's business. While you continue in your father's business, you might run into a wife. You submit your resume, so to speak, to your to a wife. If she, okay, thank you. If she decides that she wants to go ahead and and think, she says this will be something that I'm okay with, then you go to your parents, and your parents then therefore go through the community. Both of you become engaged. That's your paperwork. Your first set of paperwork is when you get engaged. Then from there, she goes and gets oil in her lamp. 10 virgins, Matthew chapter 25, that's where that comes from. She will put oil in her lamp daily, getting herself ready for her husband's return. Meanwhile, the husband goes to his father's land, and he begins to build and prepare for his wife. He knows exactly what needs to be done. He's also, his family or him have paid a dowry as well. And in this conversation that all the families had, they have told specific instructions for how she is, how she lives. They might have even grown up together. They might have been betrothed as well beforehand. We don't know. But let's just say all this is happening at the same time. Then the husband goes to his father's house. That's why no man knows the day or the hour except the father. That's a marital scripture, right? When the husband, the bridegroom, comes back for his bride, the husband is going to come back, but before then, he builds an attachment to his father's house. This is called a mansion. You think a mansion is a big house because of the cultural, the lack of cultural implication that you have, or that you can even see when you read it, because you've never been taught that, right? So he goes back and he builds an add-on to his father's house. And as he keeps on building the add-on, his father says, hey, I know my daughter-in-law. I know what the parents of her have said. I've studied the things that we've gotten. You need to make sure she has this and she has that. And I want my babies to have this and all this stuff. He knows this from his position as a husband and as the father of the bridegroom, who will also become the father of the bride, who actually is technically the father of the bride, but is waiting for his son to build. Once that's done, then he sends his son back for his bride. And the bride, who's supposed to be keeping herself prepared every day by making sure that she also is putting fresh oil in her lamp, keeping the oil in her lamp fresh and thinking on what she needs to prepare for as a husband, she should be prepared so when he returns for his bride, she should have the oil in her lamp. But many of us still can't even see that scripture for what it is, let alone how to actually do marriage, because in the Bible there's no such thing as dating. But you're coming with a beam in your eye, and so you'll talk about dating, and dating's not even biblical. And how you doing, Sister Taylor, if I didn't say so already? So you'll talk a bunch about dating, and it's not even in there. So who is being more Eurocentric? The person who says, I follow the law, and I know what it says, and I live it, and we should make sure we live it daily. See, we could start doing this stuff right now in our generation and make sure that the next generation is being trained like this so that they don't have 75% divorce rates. 75% ain't that far away from 100. In the West, 50 to 75% divorce rate is the norm. We can start teaching this stuff now. But instead of doing it, you would rather stay separate because you're so busy trying to say, I'm going to win this little piece of the argument, that you won't even make sure that the next generation can be married properly. This is why we can't allow persons with beams in their eyes to keep telling us about trash. We just can't. We can't do it anymore. I won't allow it anymore. It's crazy. You got beams in your eye. Households falling apart. Can't talk to. I used to be like this, preaching others happy, and persons coming and saying, thank you, at the time, thank you, Minister Kofi, or actually Minister Select Kofi, and then Minister Kofi, thank you so much, thank you, Pastor Kofi, thank you, Assistant Pastor, whatever title, thank you so much, you were talking about marriage and you were doing this, and I'm going home, and I'm feeling like I'm about to lose mine. At some point, I got to realize I got a beam in my eye. I'm helping somebody with the chaff, and they getting free, and here it is, and I'm still dealing with all the foolishness. How you doing, Turquoise Destiny, if I didn't say so already? At some point, it's got to be bigger than just your little argument, man. Do you legit care about Israel? Can I just ask a question? And I'm sorry. But I'm pumped up about this because it's something that it means something to me. Like, this ain't just a thing of like arguing and getting over and just being like, oh, I'm gonna turn it off and that's it. No. Like, for us, it's not just virtualist reality. Look, does Israel really mean? Does Israel really mean something to you? You okay? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Right? Does Israel really mean something to you? right? Like, are the children of Israel who are coming up in the next generation, do you want to leave them something, or are you just trying to make sure that once you close your eyes, you can say that you won 500 arguments? Because that's what it sounds like. All this nonsense with it, literally. If we had, we got, I don't know how many, I don't know how to keep up. I stopped doing the church thing, right? I used to know this is Baptist, this is Pentecostal, and this is coaching, and this is that. I can't. I don't try to keep up with it anymore. I don't know too many whatever persons are calling their different sects or whatever, because we all just branches on the tree. At some point, the tree is Israel. It's supposed to be rooted and grounded in the Word, which is Yahweh, and we're supposed to stand and make sure that when person sees us, we're planted by the rivers of water, that in its season we give forth much fruit. And instead of doing all that, we're more worried about continuing to break off, which is what we're supposed to get away from. For Christ is the vine, and we are the branches. How you going to be part of the divine vine, but you keep breaking off and splintering to try and tell everybody about your little piece? I don't care what little piece I've been given. I'm going to just make sure that it's righteous, but I know it's connected to the tree. At some point, we're going to have some kind of agreement. At some point, we're going to have some kind of agreement. Right? That's being you acting real beamish. Maybe that'll be a thing we say here at SOC. You acting beamish. Get yourself together. This is why our marriages don't work. That's right. Rooted by the word. This is why our marriages don't work. Our marriages do not work. Because you can tell everybody about every piece of chaff, but you don't think that you have a beam. You can tell everybody about what their family did at chaff, and I'm not sure if I said shalom, Sister Kimberly, how you doing, right? And Solomon said shalom as well, right? You can say all this stuff about chaff, but you can't talk about beams. And the beams are curses as well. The beams are curses as well. The beams are curses as well. Like you carrying curses and argue. Do you not realize that's part of Deuteronomy 28 is curses that we argue about things more than we help each other? Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. I know time is up. Elder Cameron has to get ready for the podcast. We got to get ready too. But prayerfully you catch this. Prayerfully you catch this. Right? Look, Deuteronomy 28, 54, 55. They say this strategically, specifically, because you got to catch it, or else you're going to remain in this curse. You're going to keep this beam in your eye. Deuteronomy 28, 54, 55. We as men of Israel, because the Bible's not written to everybody, it's written to us. It's written to those who are granted in. Those who have ears to hear, you'll hear. Those that don't, we know where you stand, or at least where you stand currently. Right? Deuteronomy 28, 54, 55. It talks about husbands. It talks about how we are in a position to where we feel like we are under siege. Pressure is coming upon us because of our disobedience to the word. Don't forget that. And we are under pressure. And we're cursed with this thing of always feeling like everything's coming down on us. And before we start dealing with our wives, it first talks about our relationship brother to brother, husband to husband, man to man. And how we will see that this brother over here has all this going on. This brother over here has all this going on, and we don't like it, and we start getting jealous. How he get that? How he get this? How did he get this knowledge? Like they said about Christ when he went back to his own people, and he said a prophet will get notoriety and all that, all this from all these other persons, but he doesn't get it in his own house. He doesn't get it from his own family. He said, right? And we look at everybody else and we go, oh man, this man got this, how he got that, and so we get mad and upset that he got, rather than working together. And because we don't work together, brothers, what do? We go to our homes and we take it out on our wives. That's what it says. And then because of that, it's trying to tell me, it wants to try and tell me what to say. I don't listen to that. Right? So yeah, it is, you're right. It is artificial intelligence. It tries to tell you what to say. I don't follow that. So, right? You hear what I'm saying? Right? Like all these persons are out here not catching the fact that we still as men are arguing with each other over who this and who that, who got more power, who got more control. Y'all's in control. And if he's not, then you're in the wrong place. If it's about your little thing, we're not doing Eastern philosophy where Confucius is against this one and this one and this one, and which Indian way of, and not trying to be mean, just saying that's the culture. Which Indian philosopher should we worship their philosophy? Because you don't worship the person, you worship the philosophy. No, Elohim is a real person. His children are real. We are the children of Yahavah. The world is waiting for us to come together, and there are those that want to, when they see us manifest, will be grafted in, so that we all can be a kingdom to have kingdom together forever. Yeah, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be even toward his brother. Right. The word tender there really refers to the fact that he's not prepared. Tender. You ever had a tender part of your body? You have a tender part of your body and you try to sit down and you can't sit down? Yeah, unprepared. It hurts. Even the stuff around you. So we become ill-prepared. We become hurt. We become and we're hurt by each other. And so therefore, yeah, we become very delicate and our eye is evil toward our brother because of the situation we're in. And then when you read the next verse, it says, we take that home and we, instead of taking care of the wife of our bosom and leading her and washing her and cleansing her by the word of the word, what do? We take it out on her. And then if you keep on going through that, the next verse talks about how she now feels like the bottom of her feet are tender and soft and delicate. So she doesn't even want to go out. She doesn't feel safe. Nobody takes care of her. What are our women, so-called black women, what are they saying to us still to this day? That they don't feel safe. Even saying, and look, I think it's kind of weird, but I get why they say it, where they even tell us, hey, I'd rather be around a bear than be around you. And even though that's a little wild, we should at least be empathetic enough to say, hold on, daughter, because that's what she is. The way that you would take care of your daughter and all this stuff, and you would listen to her, she's a daughter of the Most High, and she's your first assembly person. It's your first person in your congregation, so to speak. Especially for you leaders, she's the first member. And if she feels like, and this is how she's been, and by the way, this is what we got a ways to go in this, because this is how they've been raised. Some of them are 40 and 50 years old and you meeting them. Some of them 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, and you're meeting them and not realizing their whole life they felt like this, including many of them not even having their father. So when she feels tender and she feels like the world is against her and she feels like this, and of course, if you come in even with genuine love, she gonna snap a little bit because she's so used to being under attack. You are her protector. You fight against each other and take chunks out of each other as protectors. So by the time you get to your home and then snap on her on top of that, not only can you not even protect her as well, but you have shown that you will not. And then it says that our children will continue the same thing. At some point, do you actually care about the children coming behind? All right, thank you, Deb. I see you, Adriana. Thanks for being on. Right, thank y'all for the love. How you doing, Dusty? Thanks for being part of the community. At some point, do you actually care about the next generation? At some point. Thank you for the whole, yeah, we literally, we don't have time. I'm actually getting ready to end, but we talked about Galatians chapter 3 the last 2 days. Right? We're headed towards Galatians 5, 22 and 23, which means you have to be honest about Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 through 21, I believe. Right? But I don't have time for that today. You can go and look at the recordings of the last couple of days, but I'm not trying to come mean to you. I'm just saying we could kind of address that, but we are running out of time. We got to do the podcast. We got to get Elder Tamer up on here. So, but thank you all. I hope that I think you've gotten the point at this point. How you doing, Sister J? Right? If you genuinely care, if you genuinely, not all this nonsense about just trying to win an argument, if you genuinely care about us as a people, as a nation, as a generation, thank you, I already said that, Brother Jay. So if you genuinely care about us, if you genuinely care, this is Brother Alex, Big Brother Alex, with Alex is the son. That's who that is.
Brandon.
So,
Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon's father. That's not Brandon, but that's his father. So, if you genuinely care about what's going on, then actually show genuine love, Yahavah, action. All right? So, we're done for today. I apologize once again for my tardiness or whatever. I just keep, if you don't mind, I genuinely obviously keep my family in prayer and stuff as always, but if you don't mind, keep me in prayer, health-wise and stuff. Ministerial stuff I'll probably explain a little bit more tomorrow for our ministerial prayer. I'm kind of the same old, but just, thank you, and thank you for, who you are, the minister who reached out. It meant more to me than you'll ever know. Like stuff like that. It really, that stuff means a lot. I know all of you reached out. I'm just saying that particular conversation we had. Thank you so much. So that being said, love y'all to life. We're gonna do our shout out. If you want to come over to TikTok to join us for the shout out, you got to be on TikTok to be part of the shout out. We're gonna do a quick version of it. We got to get ready to get into our podcast, so we'll have the information for the podcast pop up when when the music begins to play and all that. So thank you everybody for being on. We appreciate you. We got to get out the way. Let Elder Tamara get ready to do her thing at the top of the hour. At 11 a.m. New York time after the podcast, Shabbat School for the Babies. No meetup in England yet. We're going to start that up. Really, I think we're supposed to start it the first Saturday of December, but I'm going to send out a notice to you guys. Don't forget November 29th, next Saturday, that's the men's meeting, the Brothers in Black. And we'll have something specific for the brothers in the evening at 7 p.m. New York time. We'll also have sisters to encourage the brothers and stuff like that earlier throughout the day. We'll explain how all that's going to work. But for tonight, sisters, don't forget, we're supposed to get women's meeting back on track, 7 p.m. New York time. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. Don't forget about the calendars. Don't forget to pray for Sister Andrea. Pray for Minister Keita's family. Pray for Minister Samantha Ray. Pray for each other. We know that y'all will keep us all. We thank you so much. If you'd like to be part of the shout out, just follow what SOC does over here on TikTok. You guys already know the drill. So whatever person's doing on there, if you'd like to be able to participate, just kind of follow their lead. It'll allow us to be able to hopefully reach out to you in a little bit. So thank you all. We appreciate you. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. Yahavah. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We're thankful to have Solomon on again for today and spending a little bit of time with us. And hopefully you all continue to do great things and marvelous things and righteous things. As always, remember that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. Thank you again.